Welcome to Soul Level Astrology Open House. And I organized this gathering in order to give the people who have either graduated from the program or might currently be studying in the program or to be interested in the program, just to meet each other and get a chance to cross-talk, ask questions, share somewhat of your own experience with each other. And Marcella and I are excited to do this because now that the College of Visionaries and Wizards is growing, we're having, for the first time, kind of a multi-generational experience of great-great-grandparents of the program and grandparents and children and grandchildren and maybe even great-grandchildren and pets and animals and all other kinds of things moving through the various dimensions of the family. But before we get into the more socially conversational aspects, I just want to bring in this late breaking news that about 5 hours ago, Saturn went direct in 14 degrees Capricorn. And for me in particular, that's significant because 14 degrees Capricorn is exactly halfway between the Mars in my birth chart and the North Node or Dragon's Head in my birth chart. And the North Node is what I named many years ago the destiny point, the place we're all trying to get to. And Mars is the energy of how to get there, among other things. So it's pretty significant for me that Saturn went direct exactly 4 degrees away from my North Node and my Mars, right in between the two. And in Star Sparks, Elias Lonsdale's channeled information about all the degrees of the zodiac. He says that this degree is karmic work taken on in earnest, deep, fundamental, hard, and heavy duty. And that's the introduction to his information. So karmic work taken on in earnest, deep, fundamental, hard, and heavy duty. And that's one side of the chart study program, for sure. It's not all hard and heavy duty, but it is all earnest, and it is sometimes heavy duty, and I know some people have found parts of it hard. However, the whole reason I created Soul Level Astrology in 1987 was that I wanted a way to use the birth chart to identify the core nature of a human being and strip away the conditioning and get to life purpose and core energy. And after practicing that art and apprenticing to William Lonsdale for 7 years, I strove to find a way to teach the same thing to others. And for many years, I failed. I worked hard to get the system across, but I found it so daunting because on the one hand, it's earthy and practical and a little bit technical, though not as much as most astrology. But on the other hand, it's magical, mystical, transformative, and ecstatic. And I just couldn't find a way to do justice to both sides of it until Marcella came along into my life and brought the right earthy, grounded, practical Taurus sides along with her high magic and mystical training. And together, somehow the two of us were able to carve out a system that we taught to 4 groups of people before the current level 1. And And while we're starting a new level 1, we're finishing up a level 6, which is the final semester. And so that will be our 4th graduating class here on Putney Mountain in June when we gather this summer. And we're hoping to have as many level 2 students join us this summer as possible, while the level 6 students culminate their studies and get their certificates and their special secret prize treasure that students get when they go all the way to the end. And so along with the heavy duty, earnest karmic work of the degree that Saturn went direct in 5 hours ago in 14 degrees Capricorn, which is very significant in my own birth chart, I want to just welcome you into the family and say it's just a delight to see all the new faces. It kind of stuns me that it's already been 2.5 years since I had a similar experience where the final level of undergraduate students was being taught with the first level of the new ones. And it's happening once again that I'm teaching a level 6 concurrent to a level 1. And it's a bit of a schizoid experience because I tend to forget sometimes which of the things I've already said to which group and repeat myself more often than I like, or neglect to realize I didn't actually say that to this group of people yet. And that only happens to me every 3 years. So it's quite an experience. And nevertheless, I'm still excited and inspired to see both new and old faces here. It's very emotional. I'm very moved by the fact that the school has really become a school in the last 10, 11 years that we've been creating it, and including cats and grandparents and aunts and uncles and nephews and all kinds of connections that are forming today, richer than ever because there's more generations than ever on this call. Thank you for joining us. And I especially want to ask the people that have gone through this. I see Anne on the phone, and Susan Rossi on the phone, and Seth Whittier on the phone. The people that have gone through the program, I'm especially interested in starting by hearing what you thought you were going to get from this program before you started compared to what you got from it. And Anne, I'm wondering if you could stop laughing long enough to talk, or if you want to just laugh, that's okay too. But anyway, if you feel ready to answer that question. And I didn't prepare them for this ahead of time because I didn't want to.
I actually think that expression.
Wait, you're muted. Hold on.
I was just going to say Lynn's on the call too.
Oh yeah. I actually think that this expression probably.
No, still. Oh, wait, is it me that's muted?
It's you that might not have your volume on.
Okay, it was me that was muted. Got it. Sorry.
I actually think this expression.
Oops. Anne has gotten frozen. We have a frozen Anne. She laughed so hard she got paralyzed.
When I started the program, what attracted me was this phrase on your website that said you're looking for a group that wants to come together as a tight-knit study group to explore consciousness. I don't remember the exact words, a band of spiritual outlaws. And when I saw that, I was like, that's me. These are my people. And I very much did find that to be true. And I actually think for me, it's not so much a matter of it being very different than what I thought, but that it was so much more than I imagined. What I found is that so many of the basic teachings of the approach, like so much more of what this program is about the approach and how we be with ourselves and how we be with somebody we're doing a reading for, and then the technicalities. And of course, the technicalities and the teachings are the bones that allow it all to move. But I had no idea that I would learn that I would really learn things about consciousness itself. I think that was maybe the surprise to me. And that really, more than anything, it's about getting to know myself, using the birth chart as a way to do that, like really knowing who I am and how I'm built, and love.
Oh,
Loving that profound.
okay. We didn't quite hear all of that because there's a funny connection. So part of your face and words paralyzed and dropped out. Can you want to say that final thing again?
In true to form style, I have no idea what I just said. Let me see. I think the key piece was about that so much more of it is about approach. The technicalities did you guys hear that part? Yeah, okay. I totally lost that last piece because I was live and streaming, and it came through, and now my brain has no idea. But that's a great example, actually, is that like I have that I can be okay with the fact that consciousness is streaming through me, and I have no idea necessarily what that is, and I can feel the beauty in that. And to sit here and not have my ego be completely freaking out that I don't know, there's not enough money in the world or to express, what that is, to be able to have that. So
Thank you. And I want to heartily second Anne's final admission there. This is not a woman who began the chart study program laughing at the fact that she has no brain. This is an incredible evolution. And if you go through the whole program, you too will end up with no brain.
You can become a brainless wonder.
I guarantee it. No, I'm just tickled inside to see Anne so incredibly relaxed and laughing at the fact that she can't even remember what she just said, because her mind is ravenous, her mind is hungry, and brilliant, and in the beginning she wanted information on top of information, beneath information, next to information, leading to further information. And as you can see by her beautiful sharing, she's learning to live by the soul. And it's not that the soul cancels the information. It's not that the soul destroys the ability of the mind to be intelligent and processing and analytical. It's just that it trumps it. It takes seniority. If you come to this work with a deep part of your soul and you open up, then all the information is put in its proper place. And this is different than much traditional astrology, which is information heavy and soul weak. In soul level astrology, the soul comes before the astrology. This is soul heavy and not information weak, but it's information strong. But the experience that you saw Anne just illustrate is the experience of somebody who has gone through the information to realize that there's a living energy, there's a soulful way to inhabit the material and her whole life. And she was demonstrating that in the moment, which is why I'm so glad I didn't prepare her for this beforehand. Thank you, Anne. And Seth, I'm wondering if you'd like to address that question of what you might have expected before you entered the program versus where you're at with it now. And I just want to let people know that Seth has chosen to come back through again and get more out of it. And I know part of that is because it's constantly changing. I couldn't teach it the same way twice any more than Anne could repeat what you just said in front of us. So it's always something different. But I'd like to hear the view from Seth's corner of northern Vermont at the moment, if you feel inclined to address that.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess one thing that's crossing in my mind is that we have just a short amount of time for this. We probably have now like 15 minutes left in this part of the call. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'm not particularly interested in taking up lots of time because there's like a lot of people here. So I guess I just want to say it's a mystery to me why I'm choosing to go back through it. And I am also, I have some fear and I am still kind of like, do I really want to do this? And so I'm still kind of listening for that. And I think that's all I want to say. To speak to your question, I think I want to make a joke, and because since you've said, Mark, several times that you failed, this big emphatic, I failed, trying to teach it before, and now you're ready to teach it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the joke would be. I mean, I don't think you failed, but like you said, only you would know. But by that, I'm just meaning, let's see. The question was, what did I expect going into it? When I first went into it, I was just fascinated and wanted to study it. I think it pretty much sums it up. I was completely fascinated. That's all. And then at the end of it, I think there's this thing. That's okay. You described, Mark, of before and at some point about like people at the end of your class with William and Sarah feeling kind of like lost at sea, like, whoa, like what did we just experience? We went through this crazy thing and now where are we? Kind of just like maybe at like prisoners of war or something, that's a horrible analogy, but people, coming from just going through some transformative experiences, it's kind of like, well, now how do I just like go back to like life? Not that I ever left life, but like, I think there's part of me kind of wondering at this point, what did I go through? And maybe the only way to find out is to go through it again. And maybe it's to let it go. So I think I'm kind of teetering on which way do I want to go with that.
Thank you. Thank you, Seth. And I just want to be clear, when I talk about the feeling that I failed, it was in the 20 years before we created the college that I tried teaching it. It wasn't after you joined us. Yeah. So you're not an adequate judge of whether I failed or not. I'm an adequate judge of whether I failed. But thank you. Thank
I
you
was trying to reflect that to you. Yeah.
for your honesty. And Susan, I'm wondering if you'd like to check in.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I guess much like Anne, when I first was drawn to this class, I wanted information. And I had been reading, Mark's newsletters for years, and there was something else operating other than what my mind wanted. I was being called, I think, by what I didn't realize at the time was a soul calling. My soul wanted to be seen. And I found that in going through this class, the information really, it mattered, but it didn't matter as much as being with a community, a family. It became a family, actually, that saw me and whom I saw. I mean, we talked about things that were so personal when we did readings and reflected back to the person who was reading for us. That, there was tears, there was laughter, there was the range of the human experience. And, the information really was so secondary to knitting together this community and knitting together the pieces of myself. Mark has told us that we're soul complexes. We're not just this one-dimensional being with this, one-dimensional birth chart. We are these multi-dimensional creations of the cosmos. And actually, I now know that at a very deep soul level. And so I've found a wholeness in myself, and in using this work with other people, I find that it's such a gift to be able to be with them and offer some of that to people who really have no idea what it's like to be seen and to be acknowledged in wholeness. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Susan. And I see we also have 2 current level 6 students who are in their final semester at long last after studying with us for 2.5 years, Gala and Lynn. And Gala, I'm wondering if you would like to respond to the question of what you might have expected to learn when you first started the program and where you're at now.
Oh, hi, everyone. I actually, when I decided I wanted to study soul level astrology, I had just finished a 3-year course in astrology. And it was a course packed with information. But I had been reading Mark for a while now, and I felt like there was something deeper in the astrology that Mark was doing. And I felt like I had to discover what that deeper level was, and that I wasn't able to tap into with the astrology I studied before. And like what I love about it, I did several readings before I started Soul Level, and I used to read a lot before the readings. Like I used to read books and like fill my brain with information, and then I always felt kind of off after the readings because I felt I wasn't fully present for the person, because I was trying to think what's this sign in the ascendant, what's this sign in the, like I was trying to think too much and give the person information. But what I found with soul level astrology was that I could, like the information sinks into your body, and like it becomes an experience. And after, when I started with Soul Level, when I started like doing readings after I began studying Soul Level, it was just like being present, and I didn't have to go and read so much. Like if I did that, I would like feel like I disconnected from the chart. But I could just look at the chart and connect with the person, and it's really like, I think there aren't really words that could describe the experience until like you go through it, but it's something like it transforms you. And what Seth said, that the the feeling of being washed in the sea. I don't remember what the expression was. Like I've been in other circles that are about soul, but they always leave you with this feeling of, what do I do now with this? But like with this practice, I love that Mark always brings the embody the soul. Like it's not about going out, it's about going into the body, and being able to bring all of this like into the material plane. And it's like it's magical. I feel like you can take all of this expansive beauty that has no words, and you can somehow bring it into words, like just connecting with the chart and connecting with the person that's in front of you. And it's like one of the greatest decisions I've taken in my life, this course. And it's wonderful that you're gonna embark on this mission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gala. And Lynn, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, just kidding. Oh, well, I just want to start with that I've been following a vision since I was 5 years old, and paying attention to how I've been guided, and how I attach myself and how I become human. And I was in an art class with Susan Rossi when she started her, when she was in the astrology, soul level astrology with you, Mark, and she had us doing our signs, painting our signs and doing some readings. And I'm like, who is this guy? And she was giving us this information. And the minute I saw, the information, I called you for an intensive, 3-day intensive without meeting you. And I had experienced a couple people reading my charts, but it was pretty interesting, but I couldn't connect pretty much with astrology. But after that reading, it wasn't I was like, when is he going to bring the astrology part? What about my Sagittarius person? And the more the 3 days went on, it was my soul just opened up, my heart opened up, my every single being, and we're listening to the words and the conversations that we were having and the experiences that we were having blew me away, my head open, my heart open, every single chakra. And I didn't have the feeling that I was going to do astrology or take a class, but I listened to spirit and I listened to what my intuition says. And this was so important that I signed up in 2016. I had no idea what astrology was. And most of the time I was in panic mode. But the first time we did a reading, and it was like, a 3 minutes or 5-minute reading, the first classes. And I read this woman just what we had learned. And she came back with such positive feedback that I knew that there was some kind of connection, that I connected somehow with the chart. But the most important thing that I have learned through these 6 levels, well, 5 levels, is the connection to my soul and to my being, and to integrate fully with that part of me. And I had never realized how this particular teachings would integrate me and make that that transition. And the power that I feel within myself is, like Gala says, it's so rich, it's so fulfilling. And now, just now, I'm really understanding the soul part of this, even though all through, Mark has been telling the class that it's not about the astrology, it's about the soul. And I so wanted to learn about the astrology part that I had to keep going back to that time when I did that 3-day intensive, and my mind was blown open and my heart was blown open, and I understood about the soul. So I now can look at a chart with more relaxation than I've ever had. I can understand different parts of how things are pulled together. And I'm auditing with the 1st level class, which I'm pretty excited about. And I'm looking forward to spending some time with you guys, and looking forward to having my certification in June and getting the secret material to send me on my way. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Marcella, and all of you.
Thank you, Lynn. And I just wanted to address the issue of the class that we're overlapping with right now. So, Marcel, I think we had an original agreement that the open house might go on a little longer and take up a few minutes of the class, right?
Yeah, that's okay. I think everyone is on here. I'll send a quick email out though, so that folks know that we might go over a little bit.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And Lynn, I want to thank you not only for sharing your experience, but I just gotta say my hat goes off to Lynn, because she's the only person in my 32-year career who decided to get a 3-day intensive before she'd ever gotten a reading from me or met me or talked to me. And a 3-day intensive is 4 hours, 3 days in a row. And she just drove here from New Jersey to Vermont, and she stayed in our studio apartment next to our house. And she came over here, and we sat down for 4 hours one day, 4 hours the next day, 4 hours the third day. And like she says, we hardly mentioned astrology. And that's because my favorite readings are the ones where I don't mention a sign, a planet, or a house. I don't think that somebody spends good money to sit with me and hear about Mercury, quincunx, Saturn, trining Mars, parallel declination in the 5th house, and their eyes are bugging out and their brain is melting, and they have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. I feel they're paying good money to find out about them. And I am not in love with astrology and astrology terms for their own sake. I use the chart as a window to the soul, and if I can talk about the soul, why talk about the window? So as you could see, it at first kind of unsettled Lynn, because, okay, we're sitting here talking, and when did we get to astrology? And in soul level astrology, the soul comes before the astrology. And so I don't expect all of my students to do readings the way I do. That is not my mission. My mission is to teach you how to do readings the way you do, from the soul. And if you want to talk about Saturn and quincunxes and Mars in the 5th house, which I occasionally talk about, that's perfectly fine. But in my glory, I'm not that interested in mentioning astrology when I can talk soul. And that's what I did with Lynn. And at first it threw her. She paid a big chunk of money to sit with this guy she never met before for 4 hours, 3 days in a row. But it changed her whole life. And we knew it on the spot. And I felt it and I said it. This is changing your life. Her life changed in front of my eyes. And in the best soul level readings, that's what happens. The person's life changes in front of your eyes in a tangible way that shakes the earth and goes back into their past lives. And like spraying WD-40 on their karma, it loosens up their unresolved issues. And not every single reading works that way to that extent, but some do, and it's quite amazing. And that even happens in some classes. Marcella, is there anything you want to say? I was wondering if some of the current students might have questions of some of the former students, but I'm also open to hearing what you might have to say.
Yeah, I would just like to weave in that one of the things that I find to be the most inspiring about these circles is the real commitment to help each person cultivate their own medicine and their own magic and their own living experience of what this is and how it can merge with what they already bring to it. And so that's the thing that really always touches me so much with every circle and every person that comes into the circle is watching how soul level astrology changes in part because they bring who they are to it. And by the end of it, how liberating it feels to know that all of the graduates have this capacity to be using tools that are shared, and yet the way that they use them is so unique and so different that it demonstrates and models something to me about what's really possible for the human species when we're given the right ecosystem to mature ourselves in, where our individual nature is cultivated in such a way that we can have a collective experience and an individual experience that actually is sort of like what Gala was saying, like just is rooting ourselves deeper in our own nature. And therefore it allows for a lot more connection to happen from the inside and the outside.
Thank you. Thank you. And do any of the current level 1 students and the students interested in the program have any questions to ask or things to say to the rest of us? Don't be shy. You can also do it telepathically, but it looks like Lily actually wants to say something. So,
yeah, I just wanted to say I've been using the basic information that we've gotten so far with the 4 directions and the assignment we had this last week to try to figure out our chart shapes. And even though, you know, Anne was saying that was kind of advanced to throw at us, it was just so good to get my hands in the clay and just start adding and subtracting numbers and just spending time with it. And it's starting to go into my dreams. And I'm starting to see how powerful just the 4 directions, that part is just huge as a window into the soul. And, you know, looking at some of the charts of my family members and things briefly and just seeing where their energies are invested, where their planets are. It's huge already. So I'm very excited to embark on this, and it just feels like such a great time in my life. Like I feel like I'm a leaf unfurling right now, you know, and coming back out into the world after kind of a long inward journey. So, I mean, not that this won't be a further inward journey, but it's so great to come out among people like you all and work together.
thank you, Lily. Anybody else? Questions or comments?
I would just like to say thank you to everybody who shared your experience with us today. Lynn, when you were talking, I had the same chills just running up and down my body that I had when I knew I was signing up to take this class. So thank you very much for that connection.
Thank you, Diane.
I don't know what I'm gonna say. But yeah, I felt very emotional while listening and being here. And it's not the first time that I feel this way with you, Mark, and Marcella. And yeah, last year was really transformative for me, really deep things. And I strongly connect with the embodying of me while being in your classes. I feel this is really happening, this magic. And I feel I'm in a very special moment in my life where I need support for this, and I realized that I was maybe afraid, and I was wondering, because I have taken so many courses and classes and everything, and many of the tools I don't use, and I feel so full of stuff, and at the same time I feel still I cannot express myself from the bottom of my being, and share what I can share. I feel I have a lot of to share, but still I don't know how. And yeah, I'm not sure I'm making sense for what I'm saying now, but I again I connected with this feeling of belonging. And it's interesting because I have been part of many groups, sometimes being physically present with people, but this kind of support and seeing each other and feeling that everyone is honoring their stuff and their shadow and vulnerability and everything, and it's amazing. Like, I have never been in such group before. And that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you.
So I know now. It's very clear for me what will happen. I am in.
Thank you. Yay. We just got another level 1 student. Thank you, Silvina.
Yeah.
And so delighted to have you join us, and especially to bring in the part of this work that has to do with the shadow. We all have a shadow, and deep down underneath that shadow is the bright light of your soul. And you cannot get to the bright light of your soul without going through the shadow. So the uncertainty, the self-judgment, the fear is even more welcome into this circle than your perfection. We are all wounded human beings who in one lifetime or another have experienced the ravages of mankind. And I particularly say mankind. Because there's a lot of ravages. And yet underneath every dark experience in our reincarnational chain is the beautiful miracle of being alive once again. And this class is devoted to bringing that deep inner life out and sharing it with others. And astrology is the instrument, but the soul is the prime mover. The soul is the driving force. And thank you, Silvina, for being so raw and so exposed and trusting us that indeed your fullness is invited into this group, and it's the same with each of you. We want the real you, and that is the antidote for the false culture that is trying to take over the world. This group is producing a homeopathic antidote for artificial existence, and also learning astrology. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Marcella, thank you especially to Anne and Seth and Susan and Gala and Lynn for sharing your time generously with the new generation, the new kids on the block. What a great thing. We've never had an open house before. And I'm just so delighted that we're starting a new institution. Just think in a few years, many of you level 1 students are going to be on a similar call. Marcella, is there any final thing you want to say before I turn the class back over to you and Anne?
Yeah, well, I too just want to express my gratitude. It's just really beautiful to see these faces and the stories and experiences that we've had. And for those that are clear actually that the certification isn't right for them, I also just wanted to share that Sylvina had participated in our tribal drumbeat program last year, and that's a much less committed way to just start to get to know who we are and how we work and what this is like. And so for any of you that are here listening by recording, that is really, we've really developed that program so that folks can get more of a sense of actually what soul level astrology is and how the medicine gets exchanged, through the lens of astrology. And then also next, actually, we're going to have to shift into a different meeting room for us to conduct our class. So this is sort of like really being in our little college of visionaries and wizards. And now we're going to come out of the foyer and we're going to be heading into a classroom. And I just want to preface it by saying that both Anne and I are graduates of the program, and we've been offering an intro course to simply share with folks some of the different things that we do in soul level astrology so that those that are considering the program just have an idea of what those different tools are. So this is our final class of that intro class, and all of you that are actually live with us today are welcome to join us. And I put the link in the chat feature here to the side. So I'm just going to say hello over here so it pops up in your window again if you weren't on before. Can everyone see that so that if you do want to head over, you can come over? Okay. So that's the kind of technical piece that I had to share. Again, so happy to see all of your faces. And Mark, thank you also for giving more context for the program and just bringing the depth of your commitment as a teacher and as a guide. And it's true what Sylvina has shared. Mark and I we don't commit ourselves to being gurus. That's absolutely not what we're committed to. What we're committed to is showing up in the best way that we can and bringing everything we have it in us to bring as guides and contributions. So if you're looking for perfect teachers to come model stunning, stellar attributes all the time, that's really not what we're committed to. We're more committed to being ourselves, and we screw up. And not that we don't make light of that, but we also give ourselves permission to be human while, carrying this through so that we all can actually do the work of digging into those deep shadows so that we can find that greater light.
Yeah, and as far as not being gurus, I just want to say that Jupiter is my star of destiny planet, and in India, the Sanskrit word for the planet Jupiter is guru. So maybe I am a guru. It just means teacher. That's all guru means. Jupiter is the teacher. And thank you all for joining us. And those folks who aren't sure if they want to enter level 1 or know that they don't want to, but if might have more questions about it, feel free to email me or Marcella if you have any further questions. And when you all leave me and go off into your own school, I want you to be on your best behavior and stellar and perfect. Otherwise, we're going to kick you out of the school. We only want perfect people, and that's the final word. But thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining us. As the mornings get chilly here on Putney Mountain, it feels like I'm going back to school, and there's an excitement with that. And there's a little bit of anxiety because I have to find a whole new way to teach you, just like I have to find a whole new way to look at any of the signs when I do a reading. That is the only way I can do it. That's what my teacher taught me. That's the legacy he gave me. I cannot teach you the way I taught Anne and Susan, the way I taught Seth, the way I'm teaching Gala, the way I'm teaching Lynn. I have to find a way to teach Diane and Mary and Eric and all the rest of you. That for me, it's going to make all the material all new again. Not 100% new because I have a deep basis, but like jazz, this is star jazz. There's a score, there's a track, the song has already been written, but unless I find some new way to play it in the living moment, it will fall flat. So thank you for entering our star jazz and our spiritual band of outlaws. And I'm delighted to welcome you into the program. And those of you who aren't entering the program, delighted that you took this time to join us today. Take care, everybody, till we meet again.
Hey, take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.